Imagine this for a moment. The most powerful financial force on Earth did not begin in a glass tower, a bank vault, or a billionaire's office. It began on a quiet, muddy street. No flashing tickers, no million-dollar deals, just a wooden wall and people trying to survive. In the 1600s, New York was not New York. It was New Amsterdam, a fragile settlement surrounded by uncertainty. Foreign powers threatened from the outside, chaos from the inside. To protect themselves, settlers built a rough wooden wall along the edge of the town. That wall was meant for defense, but history had other plans. Alongside that wall, people began to walk, to talk, to trade. Farmers met merchants, ship owners met buyers. Conversations turned into agreements, and slowly, almost accidentally, a road took shape. People began calling it Wall Street, not knowing they were naming the future. This was not a place of wealth. Not yet. It was a place of trust. Deals were not written in contracts. They were sealed with handshakes. Reputation mattered more than money. A man's word was his currency. If you broke it, you were finished. Wall Street was not built on gold. It was built on belief. Then came the morning that changed everything. In 1792, beneath the shade of a buttonwood tree, 24 men gathered quietly. No reporters, no ceremony, just a shared realization. If money was going to shape the future, it needed rules. So they signed a simple agreement, promising to trade securities only with each other, under shared standards. That moment gave birth to what would become the New York Stock Exchange. They didn't know it then, but they had just created the engine of American capitalism. Nothing dramatic happened that day. No markets exploded, no fortunes were made. But something invisible came alive. Wall Street stopped being just a meeting place. It became a system, a force, a heartbeat that would soon control the flow of money across a growing nation. As America expanded, money began to move faster through this street. Where crops were once discussed, futures were debated. Where goods were priced, dreams were valued. Wall Street was no longer observing progress, it was financing it. No one standing there could imagine what this road would become, that it would one day rival governments in power, that decisions made here would lift millions and devastate millions more, that this quiet street would someday decide who wins, who loses, and who survives. History rarely announces itself. Sometimes it whispers. And on Wall Street, history whispered first, before it learned how to shout. America was growing, and growing fast. The land was wide, the ambition wider. Factories rose where fields once stood. Railroads cut through mountains. Cities expanded upward and outward. But every new mile of track, every steel beam, every barrel of oil asked the same question: where will the money come from? The answer was no longer Washington. It was Wall Street. Capital began flowing through this street like blood through an artery. If Wall Street approved, industries lived. If it hesitated, dreams died quietly. The street that once traded crops and cargo now decided the fate of a nation's future. This was the age of giants, men whose names carried more weight than laws. J.P. Morgan didn't just finance companies, he stabilized governments. When markets panicked, eyes didn't turn to the White House. They turned to Morgan. One man, one office, enough influence to calm an entire economy. John D. Rockefeller turned oil into power. He didn't chase chaos, he organized it. He controlled supply, crushed competition, and rewrote the rules of business. His fortune wasn't just large, it was systematic. And Andrew Carnegie transformed raw iron into cities. Bridges, railways, skyscrapers, all carried his steel. America's physical strength was forged by his empire. These men were not simply rich. They were architects of a new world. Wall Street became their command center. Deals made behind closed doors reshaped entire industries. Newspapers followed the market. Politicians followed the money. And ordinary people, whether they understood it or not, were tied to this system by their jobs, their savings, their future. When Wall Street was confident, the country felt unstoppable. When it hesitated, fear spread. By the 1920s, confidence had turned into certainty. Everyone believed the market could only go one direction, up. Stocks were no longer investments, they were lottery tickets. People borrowed money to buy more shares. Risk was ignored. Warnings were mocked. Wall Street wasn't cautious anymore. It was intoxicated. Then, in 1929, reality arrived without warning. Markets collapsed. Prices vanished. Banks failed. Fortunes built over decades disappeared in days. The street that once symbolized opportunity now echoed with panic. Outside trading floors, crowds gathered, confused, angry, broken. This was more than a crash. It was a reckoning. America learned a painful truth. When money is worshipped without restraint, it eventually demands sacrifice. Wall Street had proven its power, but also revealed its danger. Yet power never disappears. It only changes form. And as the dust settled, Wall Street was already preparing its return. After the crash, America woke up. Not suddenly, slowly, painfully. Bread lines stretched down city blocks. Factories went silent. Families learned how fragile prosperity could be. And for the first time, the nation asked a dangerous question. What happens when Wall Street is left alone? Washington responded with rules. Oversight replaced blind faith. New institutions were created to watch the watchers, to slow the system before it could run itself off a cliff again. Among them was the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, built on a simple promise. Markets would no longer operate in the dark. For a while, it worked. Wall Street calmed down. Banks behaved. Risk wore a leash. The system looked safer, cleaner, controlled. But money has a memory, and ambition never forgets. Quiet years passed, and with them came a new generation that hadn't lived through collapse. To them, the rules felt unnecessary, limiting, old-fashioned. Then came reinvention. By the late 20th century, Wall Street had learned a new language. Not brute power, complexity. Deals were wrapped in layers of math. Risk was sliced, packaged, renamed. What once looked dangerous now looked sophisticated. If you didn't understand it, you were told that was the point. In the 1980s, confidence returned, loud and unapologetic. Success was celebrated openly. Wealth became proof of intelligence. Greed wasn't hidden anymore. It was justified. If you were winning, no one asked how. Wall Street was no longer cautious, it was proud. And then the machines arrived. Computers replaced crowds. Algorithms replaced instincts. Decisions that once took days were made in milliseconds. Markets no longer slept. Fear and excitement were translated into code. Wall Street became faster than human thought, and far harder to stop once it started moving. Today, Wall Street isn't a street at all. It's a global nervous system. A decision in New York ripples through Asia before breakfast. Jobs are created and erased by numbers moving across screens. Most people never see it, but they live inside its consequences every day. When markets rise, Wall Street takes credit. When they fall, it asks for rescue. And each time it returns larger than before. This is the final truth of Wall Street. It reflects us, our optimism, our fear, our desire to believe that growth can last forever. It is neither hero nor villain, but it becomes dangerous when we stop questioning it. Because money doesn't control the world. People do. And Wall Street is simply where those choices become unavoidable. This documentary is created for educational and informational purposes only. If you found this story insightful, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to support more documentaries like this.